will turn it over to Mike. Mike, you might want to say a bit more about yourself, but I know that you moved here from California a little over a year ago, right? And it's been great to have you here and getting involved in this club. And thank you so much for being with us today to present History Through a Lens.
Yeah, so this is my first time doing something like this, so slightly nervous. About me, we moved here a year ago, like Sam said. I'm a nature and landscape photographer mainly. But my camera's with me everywhere, so I shoot everything. Kind of fun. About 4 or 5 years ago, we visited Manzanar, which is in the Eastern Sierra of California. And we heard about it through several documentaries that we've seen, and it's on, I think, a little bit on national parks documentary on it. So we stopped by and visited there, and we're kind of in awe, and it was a little bit of shock and awe actually when you walk around and read up on all the history and all of it. So I've actually been to Manzanar 3 or 4 times now, and every time it's breathtaking. But since we moved here, we found out there was one in Colorado, and we said, well, we gotta go visit that. So we'll start with that.
We actually do the mic.
Oh, is this better? Okay, yeah.
It's not too difficult.
Oh, this got, okay, sorry, here, I'll get this fixed.
This is, well, do you need some more light up here? I can.
No.
Okay, let me that, I just think I just have to click on this. There we go. And then it should, there we go.
Okay. So Amache was the last of 10 internment camps to be built. And it opened up in August of 1942, and it housed about 10,000 people, no, 7,500 people over time. I think right around 7,500 was at the max. It was also the smallest of the 10 camps. The camps were set up in blocks, and each block had a dozen barracks. They also had a mess hall and some bathrooms. They looked like that. So, this is what the barracks looked at. This is one of what from the backside. From what we could tell, the way they had this set up is there were 6 rooms in here. All had there, and there were 3 fireplace wood burning stoves. One kind of in between 2 rooms. So they're kind of tall, small, kind of tight. And there's the foundation. And actually, as you drive around the park, there's a ton of these foundations, just row after row after row after row. As soon as the park or the camp closed, most of the buildings were taken down. And some were used in town, and then some were just torn apart. So this one was recreated recently, I think, and I believe they plan on building more. At this time, there's not a visitor center. They plan on building one soon, but they're time and money. Time and money is always the issue. So this is one of the machine gun towers. I always thought it was a guard tower, but after doing some research, it was a machine gun tower. There were 6 of them around the camp. I also read they weren't always all in use at the same time, and guns were never fired from them. So that's kind of cool. This is a rec hall. There was a rec hall in each block that were used for classes and preschool and other events that each block might need it for.
It's okay.
This is the site of the cemetery. There we go. 121 people died in the camp. I think only a small number were actually buried here. Most were sent home with families. There are a few still here in the camp. It's quite pretty the way they have it set up. This is a monument they have for lost soldiers. And if we go back, the 442nd Infantry Regiment, a lot of Japanese joined that group and they were highly decorated. Just a cute little garden they have. This is a well-maintained garden. It's a fairly new camp, I think. It was established in 2022 by the National Park Service. It's also maintained by a bunch of high school kids actually started taking care of it in the 90s. And they actually run a museum in town with all kinds of memorabilia and documentation for the camp. Here's the Amache remembered. I'll give you guys a second to read it. And some of the names that they enroll. And this is the water tower that I just heard you talking about, right?
Actually, the well was dug because of a WPA a cooperative thing, but it was the best water supply in the whole county. Now, I think the water tower is a recreation.
I'm sure it is, yeah, I'm sure it is. One thing that we found interesting driving up, the camp is on a hill. And my wife kept saying, why is the camp on a hill? It should be down in the valley, because you would think rich people would want to be up on the hill. But as I read about it, other camps had experienced lots of flooding and lots of mud, because they're not putting in cement anymore. So they built it up on the hill. It's not a huge hill. It's just a gentle ride. So it's kind of cool. Barbed wire. The whole camp was surrounded in barbed wire, and Cheryl thought this was interesting because this is outside the cemetery. So the cemetery is still surrounded by barbed wire. The valley below had the Arkansas River runs through, right? So it's just a couple miles away. It's a beautiful little valley for eastern Colorado. Manzanar. Okay, so these mountains, I was just looking today, are all 13 to 14,000 feet tall. The valley below where the camp is at an elevation of 4,000 feet. And to the east is another mountain range, just a couple miles away, that's probably 10,000 feet high. So this is a really shallow valley that has temperature swings that are crazy, easily in the hundreds and down into the teens, and low, gets snow in the winter. So we were here in March and the weather wasn't too cold, but the snow was obviously up on the hill. So this is the old high school gymnasium, but also auditorium. It now houses the visitor center and a beautiful museum that's got tons of displays and documents. And my wife spent a couple hours in there while I was out tramping through the fields. It's an old fire truck at the fire department. This camp is a lot bigger. This camp held 10,000 people up to, I think, a total of over 11,000 people, but 10,500 at a time. It also housed lots of police and administration. There was a hospital. The cool thing about this one is it has lots of gardens and parks. You can see them around the edge. They also they have a baseball field, and they loved baseball. I think there was just a documentary on that as well. This is the backside of one of their barracks, and at the far side is the mess hall, and then the amazing Eastern Sierras. Foundations are no longer there, but they put up signs so that you could see where they were. This is one of their blocks that was very similar to the other one. And this is one of the inside of the barracks, and you see the walls have very little to no insulation. And again, we got those temperature swings from almost nothing to 100. And all they had was that wood stove in the back. This is a recreation of the showers that they had. This is actually the ladies' restroom, and that's their shower. Again, no insulation on those walls. And this is their restroom. Are those mountains stunning or what? This is one of the mess halls that they have recreated. Oh, here's a picture that I took from offline. This is one from Dorothea Lange when she visited there. So that's what the camp looked like from her point of view. And here is the inside of one of the kitchens. And the mess hall. The mess hall was used for multiple things. They had, they would do their community events there and have dances and any other kind of parties, as well as just eating meals. There are no kitchen facilities in the barracks, so they had to go to a mess hall for every meal. It's a classroom for the little kids. And they loved their basketball. Apparently they were good at basketball. They had an outdoor court. And I believe they put in the auditorium as well, but this is a kind of a playing on sand basketball court. The parks. Several parks that I noticed when we were walking around, and actually since I've been back, they've actually volunteers have come back and redevelop some of the parks and plant grass and flowers and stuff. But what they did was amazing. They loved spending their time in their gardens, and they would requisition cement or other things that they needed to build ponds. And there were ponds, and believe they had fountains, so they were very
Resourceful.
they were very, yeah, exactly, resourceful and knowledgeable about what they could do. They just had these beautiful parks all over. As time went by, they all had jobs. A lot of them had jobs for the parks, so they worked in the warehouse, or they did gardening and growing food. So they started making money on the side, and they were able to buy things like furniture and siding and stuff like that. So they started to become more resourceful. So they were able to fix things up a little bit nicer. Still a crazy life there. This is looking out of one of the barracks. Those mountains. They had a pet cemetery, which I guess you need. And they had a living cemetery. There were 15 people buried here, but only 5 remain now. The others went back with their families. And this is the monument. And I wrote this down too. Hang on a second. It says Soul Searching Tower, and it was built in 1943.
Soul searching.
Yeah, soul searching, yeah. And these are origami frames, yes, yeah. So they're a symbol of hope and love, or Cheryl said maybe good wishes, and people come there and leave them on there. They also leave stones and coins on the base, so it's really kind of cool. This is a replica of a box camera made by one of the attorneys. I believe he snuck in a lens and then made the box camera on site. And Toyo Mayataki, he documented daily life in the camp. But also, like I mentioned, Dorothea Lange and Ansel Adams both spent some time there. And they gave me some inspiration, so I made a couple of pics in monochrome. Cause why not? And this one, I have hanging on my wall at home, and I actually won an award for it a couple of years ago at a gallery in California. Wow. Isn't that breathtaking? Anyway, that's all I got.
Awesome. Mike?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Well, here you want to hold on to that, and then if you want, anybody has any questions, you just want to chat out with Mike? Yes.
What's the geographic location of Manzanar?
Manzanar is just a few hours north of, a couple hours north of Barstow. So,
The Barstow.
yeah, so, it's a couple hours, an hour east, south of Bishop. It's east of Fresno over the mountain. So it's kind of center of the, and I was gonna put some pictures of the eastern Sierras. Just south of here is Lone Pine, and Lone Pine was the movie making capital of the world. All the westerns were built in, and some sci-fi movies were made there too. But Lone Pine and the Alabama Hills, if you've heard of the Alabama Hills, they're amazing. Mount Whitney is, and then the Alabama Hills are 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mount Whitney's tallest mountain in the continuous United States. But all of these mountains are really close to that. You can't even tell. Mount Whitney doesn't stand out like Pikes Peak. They're all kind of the same. Then just north of this is Mono Lake, and then Bodie State Park. Have you ever heard of Bodie State Park? Bodie State Park is a ghost town. It was a mining town. It's amazingly kept up. Beautiful.
Well, I'm thinking like it's interesting to see. I mean, the people that were sent to these camps, they probably had little to no idea what they were gonna find when they got there, and very sort of rudimentary way of living compared to what many of them had at their homes, I'm sure, so.
Yeah, they were taken from all over the West Coast. So they lived in places like the Bay Area and LA, and they were told to bring one suitcase. And they don't know where they're going, so what do they have in LA? They're not wearing shorts like we are now, but they're not wearing warm weather clothes. And they're being taken to a place like this where it's cold. Yes, sir.
They were rounded up and taken to the racetrack.
Yeah.
That's true.
housed-
That is true.
Housed
Yes.
in a horse's stall.
Yep.
That's where they were detained until they were transported, I think, by rail to Colorado.
Correct.
After they were in Colorado, they were a source of labor for the local farmers,
Yes.
even though it was a concentration camp.
Yeah, that was kind of cool that they were allowed to go out and work though, because. And I believe they were allowed to go out and work here as well. There just wasn't as many places to work. Like they were in Granada. Yes,
I'm told there was a German prison camp in Peabody,
yes,
and that the mayor of Peabody leased out the prisoners to the farmers and kept all the money.
there was, I don't remember if it was Peabody, but we went,
And it was Peabody, it was the hotel that's there now.
okay, cool. There's also one in northern Kansas, up I-35. Or 135.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually drove up there one day and we got there a half hour too late. They were already closed.
Well, what I heard, because I had a business, Peabody for a short time. The prisoners after the war didn't want to go back, none of them did,
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
they just stayed right in this general area.
Did
Yeah.
any Japanese Americans remain in these areas or did they all return?
Yeah, there's none in Manzanar, and I don't believe there's any in Grenada.
However, there
Yeah.
is an Asian or Japanese. Yeah, but is it a Rotary Club or a Kiwanis? I'm not sure what.
That's in Denver.
In Denver, there is an Asian service club, either the Kiwanis or Rotary, who is I mean, this Camp Amache is one of their projects.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, they've got several groups that are working on that, so hopefully someday it'll be on the level of Manzanar, actually, because Manzanar is just fabulous. The other bummer about before, they were told to pick up their bags and leave. And they had nowhere to go home to, because their homes were gone. in the most case. We know of some people down in the Central Valley that came back and the neighbors kept their land and kept it up for them, which was nice. But for the most part, a lot of them would go back to LA and their houses were gone, so they had to start over.
I wonder, when you're going around these sites taking photos, were you just kind of, were you looking for certain shots you wanted to get, or just kind of walking around and seeing what struck you?
Especially the first time, it was all about what struck me. Cause I didn't know what to expect and I was just stumbling upon things and. You know, going through the developed part or the, you know, near the visitor center, you know, they have buildings and stuff like that to go through and, you know, then it's just seeing what they did. But when you walk away from that, I mean, there's 500 acres or something like that to walk through and it's just stunning.
Well, it just looks so exposed, this just sort of barren landscape with these dramatic mountains on the horizon, you know, it's really something, so.
Apparently, one of the attorneys went for a hike. And went for a hike up in one of those mountains, and they recently found his body, mummified body in a glacier. So. Anything else?
But they could, to some degree, come and go,
A bit, yeah,
if they had a reason. I mean,
Right.
there was still barbed wire and machine gun posts, but
yes,
where were they gonna go?
right, especially out there, there's nowhere to go.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, like the fact that the machine guns were never fired is good, but if somebody were to set up 6 machine gun towers around my house and then, you know, even if they said, don't worry, we're not going to shoot, I'd still be, you know, it's not very welcoming. I mean, yeah, so.
I think the number was 110,000 incarcerated. And they were, you know, they're afraid of espionage. 0 over the war. There were 0. Yes, sir.
My brother's wife's father was in the 442nd. And they were living in Chicago at the outbreak of World War II. And none of the Japanese Americans from that area were kicked out of their homes.
It was all the West Coast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then that's so then those men on the was it on the Amache?
Yeah.
That did they go straight from the internment camp in enlist in the
Yes.
military? Wow.
Yes.
So kind of shows sort of the incoherence of the, like, they're not trusted to stay in their homes, but they're trusted to become part of the US Armed Services.
Right.
So it's like, you know.
Right, and like you said, there was a camp of mostly single military age people, so I'm sure they hope to draw from them.
Yeah, I was telling Mike before we started, I went to grad school at the University of Montana, and there is Fort Missoula, which is, it's kind of kept up like a park. I mean, it's not as barren as this in particular looks, but it was, yeah, another internment camp. And if I remember correctly, this one was only single military age, Japanese American men. So, but yeah, there's, I guess another thought that I had was, if you visited Santa Fe, that's right, there was another, there were a lot of these, facilities, camps, you know. There was another one in Santa Fe, and it was funny because like, and I remember reading about how, yeah, the Japanese men were, and probably women too, were just like, you know, like standing room only on truck someplace. And then, if you walk around downtown, there's a plaque where it's like, this was the induction facility for people that are going to work on the Manhattan Project. So I kind of had like, well, can you imagine like, you know, people were transported to that. So, like, can you imagine like, you know, military transports moving through Santa Fe, and some of them have people that are going to work on the Manhattan Project, and others are these internees. You know, it's just like, it's really, yeah. If you think about history, you know, and where you are, it really, I'm sure a lot of us experience that, like you're, just looking and then you really feel like you're making a connection to another kind of place, and like, wow, imagine that this really did happen, That's cool.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Mike? I guess we can adjourn if you, feel free to hang out and chat with each other and, yeah, take these, flyers I've got here, and those of you watching online, you can also just go to our library website, newtonplks.org, and there's a big banner on the homepage that you can click on and get all the info on the website as well. So really excited for, I guess we can call this the first summer reading program event. Right? Memorial Day's passed, so summer has begun. And thank you all again for coming, and thanks again, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.